welcome to another podcast episode. My name's Daniel. Got the fellas with me today. I got Jesse with me.
The fellas, the Jew.
I got Elijah with me today. How you feeling, man?
Hey, the Ukrainian right here.
Yeah, we're excited, man. We're excited for another episode that we bring to you guys. Got a lot to talk about today, so we're gonna get straight into it. Our topic today is about being late. Is being late disrespectful? We're gonna talk about punctuality and the importance of that. I know we've all had experiences.
I'm going to be honest, guys. I have no value to bring to this conversation.
We're going to get into it, and we're going to see how much value you have into it.
The value is that I am the example of what not to do.
Yeah, so let's talk about it, guys. I'm excited, man. So punctuality, it's important, right? So we've all been late before.
Yes.
Right?
If you haven't, you're lying.
We've all been late before, but what's the value? What's the essence of being late? Like, where does that stem from? And because we're going to talk about that. But also, Elijah, I want you to start this off because some people have their perspective on being late. Is it a cultural thing? There's certain cultural values to being late. In fact, there is cultural reasons for why people are late. So kind of give like the cultural perspective for being late. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think definitely with different cultures have a different view on like lateness and punctuality. Like, for example, the Hispanic culture, I mean, a lot more fluid, right? When it comes to time, even like my culture, I would say maybe mid. I'm not too sure if it falls into like the Hispanic level.
I'd say Latin culture.
That's what I meant. Yeah, I didn't mean specifically one. I'm saying like Latin America.
Right.
And then you have like in Africa, right?
Yeah.
They see it more of like an experience, right? Time, like don't really worry about it. Like there's a quote that I heard. This was many years ago, and it kind of stuck with me when they were talking about time in America. And it says, America makes watches and Africa has time. And so I think like the U.S. economy is based on productivity. Everything has to be boom, boom, punctual, right? Amazon, now it's going to be almost 2-hour delivery. I mean, but with other cultures, they see time as like an experience with like, hey, don't really worry about being late. It doesn't really matter. So for them, they don't really see it as something that's a problem.
Yeah.
And
right. That's good. And for many of you listening, you may not think that being late, or you may not see that being late is actually a problem, or you might not see it as disrespectful. So we're going to talk about our little personal experiences. I know that obviously we all have been late before, but like to what extent can that be disrespectful? And for some people who may not see being late as being disrespectful, kind of share your personal stories and tell us how that can be disrespectful, Jesse.
God, okay, all right. Just point the fingers at me, all right. So there was definitely, I mean, you guys have obviously seen, like, there's been certain times where I have been a little bit late, to certain things. And
a little bit.
Just a little bit. But ultimately, like, personally, what I have seen and the people around me. So context, I'm in Fort Myers, but I'm also basically in Brazil. Okay, I'm around a bunch of people that are. Oi tudo bem. There's a lot of people around me that are from different cultures, and I have actually seen like a huge difference because right now I live in a corporate life. I'm working a corporate job. Going to the office, trying to make sure I'm on time for everything. But then as soon as I get out of work, the typical normal average time is like, let's say it starts at 7 o'clock. Let's say an event starts at 7 o'clock. People typically get there at around 7:30. Everything is more chill. Everything is more fluent, like Elijah said. So that's kind of been like my personal perspective on it, is like the culture really does matter. And
it's important to talk about. So we're going to talk about the professional setting of it, and then we're going to also talk about, the personal setting, right? Like the relationship standpoint is viewing lateness a problem. Obviously, I would say in professional settings, it shows a lack of commitment, a lack of, time management, a lack of awareness. You're not willing to show up on time. I think when you don't have I think when you show up late and you don't communicate in advance, that could ultimately cause a problem. But ultimately showing a sign of respect is being early or being on time. And we always preach that in football. For me, it was like, oh, if one person shows up late on team, it costs the whole team.
Oh man.
Right. So that's implicating that punctuality, that structure is important because it shows that commitment. So, you know, I've had experiences, you know, in the in the personal setting where, you know, we can talk about relationships too, because like, you know, you can be late to anything.
Right.
Like, you know, we brought it off the camera, like, you know, our slow texts, like late texts, like those, you know, y'all have all had those 2-hour late texts.
No. A month late.
Yeah.
Right. Those 4-hour late
Elijah
texts,
can
those
share
late
his.
texts. Like, do you perceive that as disrespectful, Elijah? Talk about like that type of experience.
Well, I think no. I definitely had experience with this, with when it comes to like relationships.
Yeah.
Because it's when you really like a person, you can tell if you really like and respect a person is how quick and punctual you are with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's the key. So if you are noticing, ladies and gentlemen, that someone is not responding quickly, they probably are.
Newsflash, guys.
Newsflash. They're not interested.
If someone's taking their time to reply, to your
And that's coming
messages,
from Elijah's experience too.
Yes. So this speaks volume.
Well,
about
I'll say in my experience as well, like if I was not calling someone back or calling them back a day later or 2 days later or a week later, like that's me telling you I have a lack of interest. And you know that in a sense it's disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, you know, we live in a world today where people just ghost people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have that aspect,
Ghosting,
you know,
man.
Just go ghost on them. But like if you're going to continue to stay in contact with someone, obviously you don't want to continue to late text them. So yeah, it's disrespectful in my opinion.
Yeah.
Jesse, talk about like some of your personal experiences with being late, because I know we've this has become a thing that I will admittedly, I would say
This is his cup of tea.
Well, okay, everybody's pointing the finger at me right now, but we've all gone through it, right?
Absolutely.
We've definitely all gone through it.
Punctuality is something that we try to,
Just to emphasize that.
and we also make sure we hold each other accountable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because holding each other accountable, like, hey Jesse, like I didn't like that you showed up late to, you know, the car. Like you were the last person to the car. Like you're supposed to be out here at 3 p.m. But no, so like, I mean, we've had our conversations, our experiences, and like, how does that help you over time, like kind of get past that hump?
For sure. I think that like you said, when it comes to intentionality with friendships, is we want to push each other closer to being better, you know, being a better person. And oftentimes in my life, you guys have kind of helped me when it comes to that. And keeping each other accountable. I think that is one of the biggest things, is if you don't hold somebody accountable to it, oftentimes they won't see the struggle. They won't see that what they're doing is wrong. Again, my personal story, I've been in, you know, different cultures in different places where being late is not a rude thing. But the moment that you go to another culture, the American culture, is like, now all of a sudden you being 5 minutes late is like a slap in the face to those people. And so you have to be very, very cognizant of that. I think another part is like when it comes to Western culture and Eastern culture, they're a lot more relational. That's why they're like more lackadaisical. We're more like time.
Right.
So it depends.
And how I view it, honestly, and I'm coming from an American westernized point of view.
Yeah.
Right. If it was important to you, you would show up on time.
So
in fact, you would show up earlier.
That's fire.
So I've always had the mentality that, like, you know, hey, if I tell you to be somewhere, like, and I'm learning this more, you know, dating and stuff. Like, you know, if we're supposed to be somewhere, I expect both of us to be somewhere. However, if you have to be somewhere, right, like I hold you to that same accountability piece. So, you know, I think it's also a part of that individual's task to be aware of that.
Right.
Like, if I show up late to something, this is really me expressing, in a sense, without using my words, that this is not important enough. It's not important because
it's
no
by
one's
your
showing
actions.
up. Right. If it really mattered, I believe you're showing up.
Yeah, and that awareness starts from communicating that.
Right.
That's the key. You have to communicate if this is impacting you or this is important. And because, again, in loose settings, no one says anything. You show up late, it doesn't matter, right? And so that's because it's not communicated. trust me, if you're late to a professional, like imagine you're trying to bid for some sort of a job for your company, you will be there an hour early.
Right.
Yeah.
Because again, you understand the importance of it and the consequence, which is the second thing. Is people don't talk about the consequence of being late.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
for
not
sure.
saying like if you're late, you're a bad person. We want to make sure we're clear. But I think because we don't express the consequences of, okay, you being late, first of all, it can be rude, disrespectful, not thoughtful too. And it's difficulty, like in relationships specifically, which you got to communicate. Like, hey, like for example, let's say, you say, like all us three, hey, we're going to be meeting up to get lunch at 5 p.m., at like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And Jesse is 15 minutes late, which just happened. If he's late, I think the right thing to do, if he is late, is number one, to communicate, I apologize for being late ahead of time, not after you come back.
Yeah.
And then
I'm sorry.
it's okay. It's too late now.
It's too late.
It's too late.
It's late.
But thank you for the thought. But then also make it a point to just be early.
Yeah, how much of that structure is like emphasized? Like when we talk about being punctual, the threshold of just lateness in and of itself, it's not. It goes beyond the setting to me. Like, you know, we talk about all the time. You mentioned going to a restaurant, like, you know, being around certain people. We've learned that, okay, being punctual is important in every single thing that you do. So like, if I go to out to lunch out with you guys, and the waitress gives us our menu, she walks away, you know, she comes back 30 minutes later or 20 minutes later, they're busy, and we're still looking at our menu. Is that late, and is that disrespectful? What do you think, Jesse?
That's a good point.
Well, kind of relating to that, I remember somebody, whenever we go out to like eat and stuff, there's somebody that we go out to eat with, and he's like, before you even get to the place,
know what you want.
Like, look at the menu before you even get to the restaurant. If you get to the restaurant and you don't know what you want, we're leaving. Like that's you know how he was.
And it's especially like, you go to McDonald's, the McDonald's menu hasn't changed in 30 plus years.
Definitely
it's the
has
same.
So there's some validation to that. Like, you know, that's also a part of being punctual, right? Is like having that structure to say, okay, certain things I'm not going to spend time taking too much time on, because like, you think that's late? Like if someone takes too long to order something, like, oh, okay, you're holding people up.
Absolutely.
Dude,
And it goes back to undecisiveness. You can't again.
Yeah.
The McChicken and the Big Mac has not left the menu. If you know exactly, you order the same thing every time, and it goes back. I mean, let's be honest. Most people don't try things. You order the same thing every single time. So why are you taking 10 minutes to order a Big Mac?
Yeah.
But again, that's more so like comical for fun.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
But I do think it's important to understand the social setting. Right?
Yeah.
And have that empathy for people who may not get it. Like some people don't get it. They haven't figured it out for cultural reasons, possibly, or you know, it hasn't been addressed to them.
Right.
And for me, for people like me who I've grown up on so much structure, I've grown up on teams where people are depending upon you, that like that accountability piece is like, oh, if you mess up, the entire team messed up. Yeah. I've always ingrained it in myself to say like, okay, if they late, they just don't care. But honestly, you know, it could be something deeper than that. So it's important to have that empathy and that communication that you
Empathy,
mentioned.
man. Empathy.
For sure.
I think to point out again, culture, because I talked to somebody about this. They were in a different culture, and they were talking about how actually this is interesting. So I kind of want to hear your guys' input on this. But like he was saying how sometimes being early to something is actually a form of like rudeness to that culture. And so
which culture are you specifically? Please clarify.
You want to name drop the culture?
Let's name drop.
Just absolutely just drop a bomb on that culture right now. We're just going to drop bombs on it right now.
That's interesting, though. Jesse, that's interesting, though.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, because in football, you know, in my sport, it's like if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time.
Yeah.
You know, so, and again, just different cultures, right? So, you know, I always think that like if you showed up on time for something or showed up early for something, that means you managed your time well, and that means that it meant something to you. Yeah, it was important enough for you to show up on time.
And I think when you show up early, it's like you have a relief.
Right.
Like 100%. Think about that. You come to a place. I mean, again, we've all been guilty of being late. Yeah. Some more than others, but I think when you show up early to an event, to church, to a restaurant, first of all, it does show that respect.
Oh yeah.
But like you can not worry. You just like relax. You have more time. On the opposite side, you're like, I'm rushed. I gotta get all my stuff. Oh my god.
Right.
And so I think it goes back to just poor planning.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is poor planning and on your end to getting there on time. And again, you can never blame anyone but you.
Yeah,
that's true.
What are some strategies to improve that? Like I know, like setting reminders, like poor planning is that's something that we can all at times get better at. But like, you know, setting reminders is one of those things that can help you with the being punctual, because you have to respect others' time. Like being late is not respecting others' time.
Yeah.
So what are some practical ways you think that can improve that punctuality?
I mean, honestly, being on a schedule, you know, because the thing is, I've been in this corporate role for a little bit, not too long, but when I went into corporate, started working in that job, I realized prioritization is like key to this job, because you have so many things, so many moving parts, and you don't necessarily know sometimes like what you should do first, how you should do it. And the reality of it is you have to just sit down, look at your calendar, block time off for certain things. If you know that you're going to be late to something, if you know that that's just how your culture is or how you are, like, let's, again, example, if you go to an event at 7 o'clock and you know that you're typically a late person, set 30 minutes in advance, I'm going to get there at 6:30. And like most people, you know, you might end up actually getting there at 7, you know? So it's prioritization. Like you're prioritizing your calendar, you know, that's what I think.
What helped me, so I've done a lot of, you know, leadership development. I read books and finishing up a couple of programs. And one cool tip that I think a lot of people can take, it's called the A1 sauce to-do list. And so what that is you categorize your things according to the level of priority. So, for example, level A means you have to do it today.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's say whatever date it is, you got to do it today. It's important and you got to do it today. B is it's important, but it doesn't have to be done today, but in the near future.
Yeah.
And then C is like it has to get done, but it's not that much of a priority. Then what I've started doing is I list all the things I needed to do for today. And so let's say it's 5 things. Then what you do is you categorize them. So A1 sauce is the first thing you got to do.
Yeah.
And then the second, A2, A3, A4, etc.
Right.
This will help you bring that structure, the schedule that you said, and then so that way you don't get distracted. That was as a business owner, that was my biggest problems that I faced, is I've had so much to do that I was like, I just couldn't really focus. So now I started doing this, and whatever's an A category, I prioritize that.
Yeah.
So that's like easy tip for me.
Important. I think one of the things that's helped me is having the mentality that you could never be too early. Like I know sometimes for me, like that when you have to be somewhere at a certain time, like say I have to be somewhere at 5, and I start getting ready earlier than I think I'm supposed to get ready, that oftentimes can stir me in a direction where I get distracted, do something else. Now I end up thinking that I was supposed to get ready early, and I actually started, but now I got sidetracked and now I'm running late. So like, you know, for instance, I was at the airport and and again, like airport being on time for a flight, that's one of the things, right? That's one of those things that's important.
That's a non-negotiation.
Right. It's one of those things that like most people are not late to. And if you are, you have like that's something you need help with. Like,
well, you see them running across the airport.
Right, but that's a serious problem that someone's battling. Like that being on time stuff it's a real life problem.
It is a real life problem.
Like,
I've seen it way too. I've seen it way too many times, man. They'll call their names like 3 or 4 times, and they're like, "Last call, Emily,
Gate A3, last call." Emily, I said.
But you're like, to that point though, you're not gonna be late to a job interview.
Yeah,
right?
Some people are.
Some people are though. You know, the job's not important though.
Yeah, it may be, but again, culture. So there's a lot of things to come into. You know, we need to have empathy, obviously, for it. But
absolutely, you know. But for me, it's helped that having the mentality that you can never be too early.
Yeah.
You know? And if I show up
that's good
to an airport and my flight is taking off at 5 p.m. and I'm showing up at 2:30 p.m. because that's the schedule that I have to get planned out, and I over planned and I came too early, then that's okay. Like, you know, I'm better.
Go to your A list and knock out some other stuff. It's you know, so everything's correlated. And let's be honest, how many times we got an invitation to a birthday party, graduation, Start time 3 p.m. You show up, no one's there at 3 p.m.
Right.
Nobody.
Like even
Nobody.
the people you're celebrating. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and this happened to me this summer.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to, like, for yourself, if you know,
Yeah.
there's a saying, it says, know thyself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Know yourself. If you know this is a thing that you struggle with,
Yeah.
and you need help,
Yeah.
then sorry, this is not like a
I mean,
therapy
you have
session,
to
but you know
know,
what I'm
though.
saying.
The
Like, you have
biggest
to
thing-
know.
The biggest thing is you have to know it.
Yeah.
And you have
Yeah.
to have people that are honest with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And it has to be addressed in more in the standpoint, from the standpoint of a relationship, you know,
Right.
you know, if someone's taking that long to respond to you, you can't assume that you're not important.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's just where my mind goes, is because
Yeah.
like, oh, what's important, you're going to make time for it. Right. Because we talk about that.
And
but,
I
you
had
know,
experiences with that too. I have a
Absolutely.
lot of experience because I am a person I'm very intentional when it comes to, like, if you're in my friend group,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to seem cocky, but you're blessed because
Absolutely.
I'm very intentional. Well,
No, I'm playing.
no, but
I'm
like
playing.
I'm very intentional, and I want to make effort to build and nurture, and I think that's why we have such a great bond, is because of that. And I've had situations where I would meet someone and a great person, and I would check in on them.
Yeah.
I would call them, text them, like, not every day because I know people are busy, but like call them, let's say once every couple of weeks, and then I noticed I begin to do that myself all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not responding, or they're not doing this, and I was like, hey, let's talk. And I just told them straight to their face or over the phone, like, hey, like, I think this is disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I think that,
Absolutely.
yeah,
though.
like, no, the thing is, you're
But
laughing.
you told him why, though.
I explained to him,
Right?
Jesse's laughing.
So
but
it's not just a
yeah.
balance.
It's funny,
So,
like, yeah.
honestly, Jesse, because I'm sure you agree with this. It's not just, it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance
sure.
of respecting others' time and then also respecting yours
Yeah.
and managing
Yeah.
yours correctly.
Yeah.
So it's not just about your time management.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
It's about respecting others' time, because
Yeah.
if I want to text somebody and check up on them and ask how they're doing, that's in that moment, I'm expecting a response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and if I wait,
Yeah.
Right.
for a day or two, then like,
Yeah.
and it's not respectful.
And some people, I do agree. Sometimes you like read a message that you thought mentally you took you responded and you
mental
I'm
didn't.
not a
note.
big fan of that.
Yeah.
measure. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, explain that.
because
Explain yourself, because I've done that way too many times.
okay, but I've heard that from multiple sources. People have told me, because it's never happened to me.
Oh, you're
I've never-
perfect.
Well,
You are-
sorry. I'm sorry that we're
I
imperfect.
believe that can be the case. Okay, like you read a message and you respond mentally.
Yeah.
You must be busy at the time,
Yeah.
but then like, you lose focus and you tend to something else, forget to respond. I mean, like, the message wasn't that important. Like, because when you read something, like, just think about an opportunity that would be life changing.
Yeah. I will.
See, she
I
went.
mean, it
Yeah.
does have context to it.
Yeah, for
obviously.
sure.
Everything has context, but to me, like, I don't like that because it is a thing. But to me,
So
again,
you're telling me, so on your phone, let's say I sent you a text message, and you clearly and you see it, like, well, do you like you know how you can hold and you can see what they said?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you base your response based on what they said, or do you if
So-
you can answer, you answer immediately?
So a lot of times for me, my receipts are on red. So when I click on a message, and if I'm responding 9 times out of 10, it's because I opened the message. And I'm quick at texting.
Yeah.
So
Well, previously, actually, let's talk about your past. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, well, yeah,
He's improved. Dan has tremendously improved.
Yeah,
like
he
slow
has.
texting or just working on being punctual with my time, But as I've gotten mature, I think I've gained more of a consideration for the respect
Yeah.
of others' time.
That's true.
And not trying to hold them captive of like something that they want to know about me.
Yeah.
So like in what you're referring to is back in high school, obviously, when you guys were trying to get a hold of me, like kind of when AWOL was like, yo,
No,
what's up with Dan?
senior year, they lost the first playoff football game.
Oh my
Dan,
goodness.
I mean,
Huge
again,
upset.
a huge upset. They should have made it to the state finals. I should have played. I wanted to play, but life happens. And Dan, like, he didn't show up to school the next day.
Yeah, he didn't.
I called him. Then Jesse calls him.
Big mad.
I do respect that he sent a message. I'm sorry, I'm not taking phone calls at this moment.
Yeah, but like,
No
come on,
access,
man.
No access. Yeah, it was one of those moments where I had to regather my thoughts and
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah,
like
for sure.
wasn't being punctual for sure and considerate, most importantly, for the time of others, because I think that if someone's investing time into you to check up on you or to ask you a question or to want to get some information or feedback, I think it's important that you at least respond in a timely manner. And obviously there's always context.
It's also something we can definitely talk about on different episodes is like when you're speaking with someone and they're talking too much. I think kind of goes back into like you're not cognizant of their time.
That's very
and so
valid.
I think what most people do is they just sit in silence, like it's, which is hard to be like, hey, okay, so it's like a balance. So we'll talk about that later.
That's
but
true.
We all had that phone call.
Oh, yeah.
Hours and hours. It's like, okay, you've done most of the talking here.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, for sure. And all of this is definitely like we can make fun of it, and it's comical, but it is a problem, you know. And it's something 100%. That why we just thought like, man, this is a good topic we can talk about and like just address it. Because I got one question. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you be late to your wedding?
Not me. I'll be there.
To your
Elijah,
own
like
wedding.
no one is showing up late to their wedding.
To their wedding.
And that's the biggest. And I'm not even.
If you have, like, I'm not trying to throw
Jesse,
shade at you or anything, but I wouldn't be able.
Even I believe every culture.
Yeah.
Is not showing up late to the.
We can study that. I want to dig deep.
I want to look into that.
You ever heard the saying like they're gonna be late to their own funeral? Like you've heard that saying before. Have you heard that saying?
Yeah,
before?
I have.
They would be late to their own funeral, but it's
Crazy.
in reference that like they show up late to every single thing.
Yeah.
So like for something like a wedding, like who's showing up late to that?
Well, the guests. Sometimes the guests.
The guests for sure.
like,
but if it's your own
like
wedding.
that, but like and that might be some extensive people, but like. Well, if your family member's showing up late,
that's a problem.
That's a problem. Yeah, it's a great discussion, guys. I think finding that balance, as I mentioned, is extremely important when talking about being punctual and considerate of others' time. So that concludes our episode. I really enjoyed this topic, and we look forward to hearing more in discussion and going forward in our episodes. We want to hear from you guys. Yes. So you guys
share,
leave us feedback.
comment,
absolutely,
subscribe.
We want you guys to like. Comment, subscribe.
Even tell us your thoughts about what we talked about in the comments.
Yeah.
Again, that might be a spin-off of another episode we can do.
Yep.
So please comment.
Question in the comments, okay?
Yes.
Tell us when was. How do I word this? What time? I don't know how to word this.
Like when is early too early?
No. Like what is the latest? Yeah. What is the latest you've ever been to something?
Oh.
Yeah.
Put that in the comments.
Yes.
Right. Is it late to be 5 minutes? Is it disrespectful to be 5 minutes late or something like that? Or what's
No. Like, what is the latest you've actually been to a specific event? Like what is the latest you've actually been?
No show.
Yeah, just don't show
Just
up.
a no show. And what's the most acceptable time to be late?
Yeah.
Like what's the
and
if
you're late, do you rush even more? And depends on like if it's 15, 40. So again, this is a great.
We want to hear from you guys.
Yes.
Leave us your feedback.
Throw it in the chat.
Ask us questions. We want to continue to improve this podcast and continue to talk about various different topics. So once again, we appreciate you guys. And SSB out.
SSB out.